Hello friends, welcome to Daily Sourdough. Today we are going to make whole wheat honey sourdough sandwich bread. That's a mouthful, but it is a delicious bread, soft and half whole wheat, half bread flour. Really great recipe because you get a good rise from it, and there's a couple of tricks I'm going to teach you today that will help your bread rise and be a little bit less dense and heavy when you're using whole wheat flour. And I'm using hard red winter wheat from Palouse, and I'm not really advertising this brand, but I do like this brand a lot, mostly because I'm a sucker for beautiful farms. This comes from a beautiful farm in Washington State. So I love their company because I think they're a reputable company, produce very nice wheat berries. If you're making whole wheat bread and you want it to look like whole wheat bread with that darker color, then use hard red wheat, winter wheat. If you want it to look like white bread but still be whole wheat bread, then use hard white wheat berries. The reason you use the hard wheat berries versus the soft wheat berries is because hard wheat berries have more protein in them, which gives you a sturdier structure to your bread. If you want to make pancakes or cakes and soft baked goodies, then use the soft wheat berries. So those are just a few little tips. And also you get this darker color with the red berries, and that's what I'm going to use today. But if your family is afraid of the whole wheat breads, then just trick them by using the white berries. And another tip for today when making whole wheat bread is to have an overnight autolyse period, especially if you're using 100% whole wheat in flour in your bread. So in today's bread, we're using 2 cups of bread flour and 2 cups of fresh ground hard red wheat berries. And I just ground this a few minutes ago. If you are going to grind your own wheat, then either just grind what you need for that recipe, or you can grind extra wheat and then just put it in a Ziploc bag, then label it with a Sharpie what kind of flour it is and put it in the freezer. This way your flour won't go rancid. When grinding fresh berries, it must be frozen once they're ground. Once you take that hull off, because then they'll begin to go rancid once that hull is taken off. Just a few little ideas for you here. Now we're going to add 1 1/3 cup of water into just the flour and stir it up so that the flour is moistened, but don't overmix. You just want the flour moistened. You don't want to begin developing the gluten at all, so you don't want to overstir it. This is the autolyse period. An extended autolyse period allows the flour to absorb the water more fully, which activates the enzymes in your flour. These enzymes turn the starches in your flour into sugar, which then your bacteria and your yeast are going to devour, which helps the process move along even further. It also allows your bread to become more flexible, more stretchy, which allows for a higher rise in your bread. So an overnight autolyse with whole wheat is a really helpful process to help you get a nicer, softer, fluffier whole wheat bread. Also, when you're grinding your own wheat, it has a lot of bran in it, and that bran acts like tiny shards which can slice through the gluten, also causing your bread to kind of cave in, not rise as high as you want it to. Now that I have my flour and my water has been mixed in thoroughly, see, it's just a shaggy mess. I don't want to overmix so I don't start developing the gluten. I'm going to cover this and put it in the refrigerator overnight. Then I'll start my bread in the morning and I'll bake it tomorrow evening. So it's still a 2-day process. So just remember, whenever you're making whole wheat bread, if you want to do the overnight autolyse period, add all of your flour and all of your water together and mix it up just until all the moisture is absorbed by the flour. Cover it and put it in the refrigerator. It's the following day. My wheat autolysed in the refrigerator overnight, and now this morning I mixed up the dough. And what I did was I added 100 grams of sourdough starter, which is about 3/4 cup, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 teaspoons of salt. Then I mixed that up, and I didn't show you, but if you want to see what it looked like after the autolyse period, please click the link below, because I have a video that's called Why Autolyse, and it will show you exactly how it turned out after the autolyse period in the refrigerator, and it's a good comparison video, so please watch that. Then after I mixed it all up, and actually it takes a little bit of work to mix up the rest of your ingredients with your autolyse dough, because it's quite stiff and you'll need to let it sit out on the counter for about an hour, and then mix your ingredients in and just work it with your hand, and the warmth of your hand will soften the dough, and gradually all of that will get mixed in and it will turn out beautifully. After mixing all of your ingredients together, do 4 rounds of stretch and folds 30 minutes apart. So in a 2-hour stretch of time, do 4 stretch and folds, and keep a bowl of water handy, because your dough might need a little help in incorporating all those ingredients together and getting it to that soft dough that you want. So dip your hand in the water and then do your stretch and folds. And you want that dough to be a bit sticky. You want this high hydration dough that will allow your dough, your whole wheat dough, to rise higher. After your 4 rounds of stretch and fold, cover your dough and place it in a warm room for 6 to 8 hours. Just kind of keep an eye on it and test it. You don't want to overproof it since it's had a little head start with your autolyse, but you want it to really bulk up and have a dome on the top of the dough. So you can see there's a lot of life in the dough, a lot of fermentation going on, so it's very happy. Now I'm going to shape it and bake it. So take it out of your bowl when you get to this period. And I know I just kind of briefed over some of that, but the instructions will be included for you to follow along. Now cut your dough in half, because this should make 2 nice sized loaves. And form it into a rectangle. Then just shape as usual, fold a third in, the bottom third in, then the top third in. And you probably have your favorite way to shape. Pinch the ends together. And then to create some real nice tension on the top, which is now the bottom, just pull the sides in. So pinch some on each side, and you're just kind of stitching it in together, pulling it tight underneath and securing it here. Be sure to have your dishes ready. So I'm going to butter my bread pan. And this is kind of sticky dough, but that's going to be good because it will allow the dough to rise while it's rising one more time. And then just kind of shape it while it's in the pan so you have an even loaf. Do the same thing to the other dough. If your dough's really sticky, just wet your hand and then manipulate the dough with a wet hand. That makes it much less likely to stick to your fingers. Once it's shaped and put in your bread pan, then cover it up with a plastic wrap, and I'm using a shower cap so that it doesn't stick to the dough, and let this rest on your counter in a warm room for 1 to 3 hours. The dough should rise so that it's to the top of your bread pan. So we'll see in a few hours. My bread has been rising for about 3 hours, and as you can see, it's reached the lip of the pan, so it's time to bake. And I have the oven preheating at 375 degrees, and I'm going to slip them in the oven now. Bake them for about 45 minutes, but check them around 40 minutes. It's kind of a longer, slower bake. Well, here you have it, friends. Fresh ground whole wheat honey sandwich bread. It turns out beautifully, especially when you do a long autolyse. So be sure and look up that video. It will really improve your whole wheat breads. But this is a wonderful bread. It turns out soft. It rises well. It makes delicious sandwiches. You're gonna love this recipe, and you will achieve great results with this recipe. And friends, be sure to stay tuned because I have more recipes for you coming up on Daily Sourdough.